Does having a 9 o'clock game between two 10 a.m. games change anything prep-wise? I know you guys are resilient, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all part of the path of college basketball season, and really for coaching staff and players, you have to adjust to those odd times. The NCAA tournament sometimes can present that to you, where you have that early start in the East, early start in the Midwest, and you know what? You do all this work, you finally, it's hard, very, very difficult tournament to even be in, and then you're in it. Guess what? You want to have at least the best chance to advance. So, sometimes giving yourselves different starts. I know we don't necessarily control the starts, but, what we did, for example, at Missouri, I think speaks volumes about our team's mindset and readiness. I mean, our pregame meal was at 6:30 in the morning and 10 a.m. start. There's some teams maybe that have that as an excuse. We didn't, and I think that's our players should really be commended. Kadeem Allen, our leader, and just even the young guys, they were ready to go. But you're right, and we repeat that this weekend when we go to Houston, and then playing a 9 p.m. game, that takes forever to get to. But everybody gets used to those times. Before our players get to college, they play it every time. Sometimes they play 2 and 3 games in a day, play late at night, early in the morning. So I think they're more well-versed in that than any generation has been in the past.
Coach, what have you seen on the Grand Canyon so far, especially Dwayne Russell?
Yeah, well, Russell played against us here in McHale a long time ago, and at the beginning of his career when he was with NAU, he was very, very good at that time, and he's, a more mature player now. And but I watched what he did to Louisville. That speaks for itself. If you get 40 or more points against them, you're a great, great offensive player. And then I watched him against San Diego State. San Diego State competes and plays as hard as anybody. And I think, just watching how he can score, there aren't many players that are playing in college right now that have the ability to score like him. Gets his own shot, very efficient, loves the pull-up, can score from 3, from 2, gets fouled, great free throw shooter. And Dan Marley and his coaching staff do a great job of putting him in a position to be successful. He's also not the only good player that they have. They have 2 forwards that are a little bit undersized, but man, do they work on the offensive glass, and they can drive the ball against bigger players, and they're very organized. We respect them a great deal. You look at their record, you look at who they've played, where they've played the games. I know they've had some injuries. They're poised to have a very good season. So, Bakersfield when they came in, I think, UC Irvine, when you see these guys on film and you project where they'll be in their conference, we look at Grand Canyon as a really good team, a postseason team. And for us, we're going to have to be ready to go for sure. We have to be ready every game. It's part of life as a college basketball team. When you show up and you're not ready, you lose. And especially a home game, final exams, towards the tail end here of our non-conference season, playing an in-state school with a great, great offensive player, it's going to present a lot of challenges, and we have to be up to those challenges.
Marley's college career was ending just as yours was beginning. Were you aware of what he was doing at Central Michigan? Was that a guy you knew at the time?
Well, yes, I became obviously a coworker and great friends with his college coach, Charlie Coles. I worked with him before, Charlie has passed away a few years ago, but he was Dan Marley's head coach at Central Michigan. But, I became aware of Dan as a player when everybody else did, I think, in the nation, if you didn't know him already, and that's when he made the Olympic team, when John Thompson was the coach, and then you watched him in the NBA, obviously, great, great player.
With his history as an NBA assistant coach behind a lot of guys who are really well known for good offense, do they run NBA stuff?
Yeah, and, college basketball is more NBA-like now than before because the shot clock has gone from 35 to 30. It may not seem like a lot, but that's impacted our game more than everybody thinks. You saw it last year. So now, the shot clock's only 6 seconds away from 24 as opposed to 11. And that's significant. So there's more things that mirror NBA offense than maybe the past. You have to get into everything a little faster. But yes, to answer your question, I think Dan and his coaching staff really coached their team well, offensively and also on defense.
You made that comment about Raleigh being, physically gifted, a good rebounder, but now that he's got to learn how to rebound in college. What does that mean?
Well, he's done that. If you look at him, what he's done on the offensive glass, he's gone and really gotten the ball and scored or gotten fouled. He did it against Gonzaga. He did it against UC Irvine at the beginning of the game. Had a couple big putbacks against Missouri. It's just, Raleigh's 6'5", 6'6", 220 pounds, tough, physical, long arms. He has a knack to be on the offensive glass. I think the challenge for him is to do it on the defensive glass, maybe as well as he's doing it on the offensive glass, and blocking out, dealing with players like himself now where they don't run back on the shot. They actually try to get second shots like he does for us. So helping out, blocking out, getting more defensive rebounds. I think that's a big part of his upside this season. We're at whatever he's averaging right now, we would like to see that average grow because he's very capable.
Is there a part of his game that's developed faster than maybe you thought it would?
His three-point shooting has. He's really learned to take good threes, not hunt shots. I think Raleigh's unselfish by nature. And as he's really learned to take good threes, he's put a lot of work in. This summer or fall, he's always in the gym after practice, at night, before, and he works hard at his game. And he's starting to see the benefits of that. His free throw shot, his three-point shooting, he can shoot the ball. And as teams have dared him to shoot, as he's taken good shots, you see, I'd say his percentage is right around 40% now from three, which is excellent. And now we have 10 games, so that's not the first couple games of the season anymore.
So that was the case. Teams would say, shoot it, Raleigh, go ahead.
I think if you watched him early, or his MO, our MO is dare him to shoot, play the drive, but he's learned to take what the defense gives him. He had a couple great threes against Missouri where we played inside out, threw the ball to the low post, or one of his teammates did. He positioned himself well, stepped into it, and knocked down a really good shot. So, but an open three by Raleigh right now is a great shot for our team, and he knows that. He's done it in practice longer than he's done it in games, but I've yet to see somebody that doesn't even out. They may get off to a slow start or maybe even too hot of a start, but usually their percentage becomes almost what you see it every day in practice.
13 threes aside, what were you able to do against Missouri's zone that maybe was less effective against other zones that you'd seen?
Well, we moved the ball well. Our team's getting more comfortable. We've played against quite a bit of zone. We played against Santa Clara for 40 minutes. That was an odd front zone. Played against UC Irvine, even front. Played against Gonzaga, very good zone, but they bounced back and forth. Missouri, they threw the kitchen sink at us. They played a 1-3-1, a 3-2, a 2-3, soft press, drop into it, played some man-to-man. So it was recognition. Their game plan was clearly to see if we could beat them from the outside. But, when you're shooting wide open threes and you have good players, our guys are able to shoot the ball. And we've had some stretches where we haven't shot it as well. But I would say that's as much of a function of injuries, players moving, shifting from one position to the next, and then depending on quite a few freshmen, guys that are seeing things for the first time and just aren't as comfortable as maybe they will be. But every time that we play a game and get through another week here, everyone settles in and I think is more well-versed on what they should do, what we should do as a team. And because of that, I think the shots feel more natural. And, hopefully that'll continue.
Coach, most of the players finished their finals, or do they still have some?
I would say every player on our team has finished at least a class, and some of them are finishing up maybe their second class or maybe have just one thing left. But I think just about everybody on our team still has at least a final to take or a final paper to hand in. So this is last week was really a peak time, and this week is as well. But as we get closer to the end of the week, most, if not all of our guys will have the first semester behind them. But no question, you're juggling practice, you're juggling the demands of getting ready for a game, the pressure of the game, a 9 p.m. start, and also your 4 or 5 classes finishing up. So we're on top of them. Our guys have done a good job to this point.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody have a Thursday morning final after a 9 o'clock game?
I'm not sure. There's certainly a possibility. It's not as if we'll change the time of the final if that's the case.
When are you taking off for Houston?
Friday.
Did the guys all? Did you guys practice yesterday when you came back, or just
No,
started
we were
today?
off.
Okay. And do you have everybody back at this point? I mean, the guys who stayed here.
They're all
back-
here.
Back to
Mhm.
practice tomorrow,
Yep.
or today?
Yep.
I was wondering one more thing about Grand Canyon. Was there a key, looking back at it, was there a key relationship or something that made this game happen? I mean, it seems like they probably have arguably more to benefit from coming here and playing you guys than you do playing them.
You know, we're always going to make the decisions on our schedule and what we feel is the best for Arizona, both year in, year out, where, you know, we experience a lot of change, the balancing of our schedule sometimes you can control, and home, away, neutral. But we want to put ourselves in a position to have quality and at the same time balance so that you can play through injuries, that you can certainly have confidence going into your conference season, but also a number of challenges. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to shoot holes in what we've done scheduling-wise this year's non-conference schedule. We've played, you know, Michigan State, and Michigan State's had some injuries, but you don't know that in the summer. In Hawaii, you know, we've played Gonzaga, who we knew was going to be a really good team in L.A. We're going to play Texas A&M, who we knew was going to be a really good team in Houston. Playing halfway across the United States, SEC team, Missouri, on their home court, true road game. Playing in an exempt event against Santa Clara, and then Butler. Butler's a perennial NCAA tournament team, as you can see by their record right now. I think they'll be that this year as well on a neutral court. And we've had a number of maybe deceiving home games. You know, I think Bakersfield was a team that if you watch them, I think that they have a chance to be really good. Ditto for Texas Southern. We have New Mexico still on the horizon. And then we get to Grand Canyon, and if you look at their talent level, who they've played, how their home court is shaping up, I think they're going to have a very, very successful season. So being able to take a team from our region, this happens to be in state, and having a chance to play them, it's not as if we're doing anybody a favor. We're doing what we think's best for this year's team. And this will be a big game for us. This will be a game of meaning, and hopefully we get to March. I think you'll see that Grand Canyon, what they've done, bodes well for us, that we've played them, and hopefully that we've defeated them, because they're more than capable of coming in here and beating us.
I wonder I think when you were first here, there was that deal where nobody in the Pac-12 was supposed to schedule them or whatever. I didn't know if you ever had any thoughts on that, or now that it's over, were you all for playing them? Or
No, I mean, I do what I'm told. Once we were allowed to play them, we looked at the quality of their team, the quality of their program, how they've done in recent years, how they'll be this year, and, you know, where we see them. And we looked at them as a real quality opponent, one that made sense for us to play. And we're not the only one. I mean, you know, Duke, Louisville, San Diego State, and there's a lot of teams that have chosen to play them because they're a quality opponent.
what's your thoughts in general, just how that program's kind of gone? It's still, I think it's still kind of transitioning or whatever.
They've done a remarkable job. You know, Dan Marley should get a lot of credit, and his staff. They've built that thing from the ground up, literally. And if you look at their home court, I've been in their arena, not for one of their games, but man, it sure seems like a heck of an environment that they've established in a very short period of time, and that's to their credit. But also the talent they have on their team. You know, Dan is a coach, excellent coach, and I think who they're able to schedule non-conference, they're really building a terrific program.
Would you have ever thought that TJ would be one assist away from an NBA triple-double?
Not necessarily. I mean, that's a heck of a feat, but I did think TJ would be an NBA guard. I really believed that, and you know, looking back at him, the success that he had and the impact he had on the two teams that he played on here, it makes sense. It really does. He's, he's someone that we're all really proud of, and you know, hopeful that he'll continue to stay healthy and have a long career because he's well on his way to playing in the NBA for a long time.
How much time do you find to be able to watch all your former players play in the NBA?
I wouldn't say I watch them a lot, but I certainly follow them. I'm aware of what's happening. You know, sometimes they reach out, sometimes their organization reaches out, or we do, or you know, the assistant coaches on our staff all have relationships with them. Sometimes even our current players. So we try to keep tabs on those guys as much as we can, and several guys that are in Europe as well. You know, Nick Johnson's doing well over there right now, so we try to keep tabs on all those guys.
Stanley got shifted to the D League, but did you talk? I know you know Stan.
Yeah, I don't think it was a demotion as much as he wasn't playing as much, and sometimes, you know, in an effort to continue to prepare those guys for what's to come, you know, you want to get them some game experience. More NBA teams are doing that than you think. So I know he played well when he did that, so that's good. But Stanley will find his way. He's too talented, too smart.
When it comes to Lowry and fouls, is there a teaching moment in terms of what to do, what not to do?
Very much so, and it's not just Lowry. That's exclusive to our whole team. You know, we got away with, I think, some silly fouls in the Missouri game, and I don't mean silly. Got away with it because they weren't called. They were called, but they were called right. We fouled. You know, at the end of the clock, not reaching. You know, being able to challenge a shot and not, you know, come over the top or slap down at the ball. And I think the rules are clearer now than ever. And you know, you have to stay within your own cylinder. You have to stay out of the opponent's cylinder. And you know, you have to show your hands. You have to go straight up. In verticality, if you do go straight up, whether you jump or not, they will reward you for being disciplined and sound. But if you come through with an arm or you reach or you take unnecessary chances, it's going to be a foul every time. And, you know, Missouri shot 30 free throws. And that was a big reason why the game was where it was at halftime and why it felt different at times in the second half. You know, if we would have done a better job of staying in the play and not fouling, being more disciplined, not reaching, you know, having more of an awareness of going straight up, you know, with the size that we have, I'm not so sure that those shots are going to fall. And now we get a defensive rebound and we're gone. So that's part of learning. You know, 3 freshmen, I get it, Lowry being one of them. He'll get better as he learns what's being called and what's not. And he also has to use that to his advantage as an offensive player. You know, the rules in FIBA are much different than they are in college. He'll be the first one to tell you that. So he's adjusting not only to college, but away from sometimes how things are called in FIBA basketball versus college. So it takes a little time. And but I think that's a great reason to come over here and play college basketball if you're him, because once he gets it, he'll never lose it. And I think that's going to prepare him for what's to come.
When you say that, you've coached in FIBA too, of course, but what, like specifically, what's an example of a difference? I mean, do they not go with the cylinder? Can you be a little more aggressive defensively?
Well, it's very, very physical around the basket. I think they penalize reaching just like we do. But I think that the drives aren't called in the way that they're called in college right now. You know, I think that if the offensive player is really driving maybe without true purpose or he's being super aggressive, you know, in FIBA, in my opinion, they'll just let that play out. They're not going to reward the offensive player. Whereas by the letter of the law in the NCAA right now, it's just with contact in that case, it's just pretty much going to be called. And the block charge in FIBA is non-existent. They don't want the charge in FIBA basketball. So when you consider that, you know, that both impacts Lowry on offense and defense. So he's learning how to take the charge, learning how to play with players trying to take the charge on him.
Is it more of a challenge? I mean, maybe, you know, with a guy like him who's so offensively skilled, you don't want to lose him like you said the other day in Missouri, but, you know, he has to abide by that. You have to be careful with that. Is that a tougher balance to deal with?
He actually's played in several games where he hasn't fouled. You know, I think the Butler game in particular, you know, sometimes you get a couple of tough calls. And unfortunately for both us and him, he was the victim of several in that game. You know, in this game, maybe one could have gone either way or not be called, but I think, he put himself at risk, by coming down one time late in the clock and just almost stopping and hip checking a drive. But those are things he'll learn. He'll learn from that. He'll grow from that. And believe me, he doesn't want to sit over there on the bench, and we don't want him on the bench for that reason.
How difficult has it been to basically reprogram him?
Not difficult. It just takes time. He's just not going to have it right, and that's why, whatever our record is in non-conference play, month of November, we're not a well-versed, older, experienced team that's been there and done that before. That's not to our advantage here early on. So, I think the positives, the upside, the ceiling that our team has may be somewhat higher as some of these things are learned through game experience. Raleigh is another example of, the number of charges that teams have taken on him. It's amazing. I mean, that's turnovers and fouls. But I think as he keeps playing, he's going to do that less and less because he knows the consequence of when he takes it in there and can't stop or drives early in a possession. So with every game that we play, I think watching the film of the game, practicing leading up to games, these younger guys are going to improve.
Lowry, personality-wise, it seems like he's pretty serious and willing to buy in. I mean, how does it like working with him? Is it different than, American kid who's been through a different system than he has? Or?
No, I think we have a really good group of guys. All of them are very coachable, willing to learn. Lowry's, not only is he no different, he's extremely coachable, willing to learn, but he has a burning desire to be a great player. He really has a tremendous work ethic. He wants to learn.
Has Raleigh followed through on his promise with his defensive commitment to you?
He has, and he works hard at it every day. He didn't have a real high starting point. It wasn't because he couldn't do it as much as at his size. Guys like him, you're not going to chase around guards and chase the movement that we have in college as much. So a lot like Stanley being a bigger player, it took Stanley some time. It's taking Raleigh some time. But he's in a better place now than he was 2 weeks ago or a month ago. And that's really how you judge these players, especially the newcomers. As much as we like them to have it down pat or as talented as they may be, you can't ask them to be a finished product through 40 practices and, 10 games in. You just hope that if you looked back at game 3, 4, and 5, that game 8, 9, 10 are better. And especially in some of the things you're emphasizing to them every day. And Raleigh would be a great example of that. Is certainly the case. He is growing, he's learning, he's improving.
Do you have both Dylan and Zoe playing on the scout team right now? Is that right? Or?
A blend. They play. We go blue-red. They're in the 5-on-5 action. Sometimes they are on the scout team. Once in a while, we have them on our offensive teams, so they know our system. But I'd say it's pretty standard on how we do that with guys that aren't able to play or sitting out.
Okay, I wondered if maybe you felt like you had a better scout team than normal with those two guys.
We have a better practice environment than game because we have a lot more depth. We were able to practice hard. Obviously, we keep in mind that we're playing roughly 7 in the game, so we're smart with how long we practice. And sometimes, you have the fear of God with the injury, of what would happen if one of these 7 goes down. And that can happen. But, if you live your life as a coach, as a player, that, somebody could get hurt, something's going to give. And what's going to give is, number one, they still can get hurt, but also you're not going to be ready for the competitiveness of a game, the pace of a game, the tough moments in a game. And where you get ready for those are every day in practice. So if we're not going as long, we're still going as hard.
How's Dylan doing, by the way? He was out for, a week or two?
Yeah, he missed a week for having a concussion, but he's back. He's finishing up the first semester, learning our system, practicing hard every day. He's one of our team's best shooters.
When he does play scout team, when you work him in, you mostly play him at 2, or what's his?
Sometimes we give him the ball because he's bigger. He I think simulates maybe our opponent better, but he works hard every day. Like there's no free passes if you're him. Even in shoot around, we treat him as if he's getting ready for a game. that's what you learn in your year off. You have to learn our system, and you have to find a way to become a better player. In Dylan's case, a big part of that is strength and conditioning. He was very thin when he got here. He's gained strength, he's gained weight, and he still has, the rest of the winter, spring, summer. By the time you see him next year in the red-blue game, I think he'll look like a different person. But that's phase one, academically, moving towards graduation, making sure he's solid there. And then, learning our system. He gets quality reps every day, and when you are eligible a year from now, similar to a number of guys we played against with Gonzaga, they may be new, but they don't feel like they're new to Gonzaga because they've practiced with them for an entire year. Dylan will be an example of that next year.
And just looking ahead to Saturday, how did that game work out that it was in Houston instead of College Station, or what was the?
That was the opportunity that was provided, and they're going to return the game to Phoenix. We always look at, football is the same, being able to tap into Phoenix because it's such a big place with so many alums in our state, and being able to play in that NBA arena, that simulates March Madness, gives our guys, the opportunity to play on that big stage. The part of what hurt us against Gonzaga is we were in shell shock there at the beginning of the game. I talked to our players about not taking NBA threes. You get confused sometimes on what line is a college line and what line is an NBA line. We took our first 5 threes are from the NBA line. And that just shows me they're not auditioning for the NBA as much as, you're not aware. And that's a big arena, Staples Center, a major city. So, I don't know if we were as sure or confident, but you play in a couple of those, you build your team's confidence. I think it gets you ready for what's to come, certainly our conference season. So, and, for us, Houston is a big city. We like to be able to recruit the state of Texas. Being able to play in the state of Texas is good, and it's not that far of a trip for us.
All right. Thanks.